Welcome back, fellow adventurers, to the Frog God Games YouTube channel. Today I have on some very important guests and influencers. Our guests today have over 165,000 followers collectively on social media. Our influencers are quite literally played Dungeons & Dragons in a castle and are now the proud creators of out-of-the-box encounters on Kickstarter. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Nerdarchy, Dave, and Ted.
Woo!
Thanks for having us on, Ben.
Thank you guys for coming.
I was waiting for these influencers to show up that you're talking about. Oh, these guys sound really great.
No. I think there's a certain distinction between like influencer and just content creator, and I think you guys definitely fit into the influencer category. Just right off the bat because of your massive followings on the social media. So since I mentioned social media, and your presence there is very large in the Dungeons and Dragons hobby. However, YouTube is sort of your main avenue. So you guys run the Nerdarchy YouTube channel. Tell us a little bit about that.
All right, so we started this this thing about 5 years ago, I guess, in Ted's basement, and it moved from there. But yeah, I mean, we grew from nothing to we're closing in on 100,000 subscribers. It's been a wild, crazy ride. Yeah, I know we haven't exploded the way some channels have, but we've been really happy to just like steadily grow and build an audience. And you know, the fact when we first started, we didn't think that people would watch us talk about Dungeons and Dragons. It seemed a little weird in the beginning, but here we are.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we've lost members of the Nerdarchy staff. We've had interns, we've had people who have managed our website. We've acquired Doug, our nerd editor in chief, who manages our website, does all of our product editing and layout. We're super thankful to have him. And as we've kind of grown and evolved, we've just tried to keep the conversation moving forward, keep the conversations and stuff that we do on a positive bent, which I know there's some creators out there who are like, oh, well, I'm going to go negative, or I'm going to, say this kind of stuff. And that's not what we're about.
Paladins are always lawful good.
Yeah.
I have something in my throat. I think a cold is starting
Yeah.
in the middle of summer. Anyway.
Maybe you can fix that with some lay on hands. I don't know.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, you guys, personally, I met you guys like a year ago about now. And a lot has happened in the last year. It was super cool coming on your guys' show because I started off like a huge fan, and I still am. I've of the Dungeons and Dragons channels that I came across at first, it was you guys in Dawnforge, and anyone I talk to nowadays, I sort of humble brag sometimes. I'm like, yeah, the guys in Nerdarchy. Everyone that I talk to in the Dungeons and Dragons space is like, oh yeah, their videos rock. So I think collectively the D&D crowd, you guys are sort of like one of the pillars or the rocks of content creators for Dungeons and Dragons, which is insane. Like I said, or like Dave's actually pointed out, was you guys are about to hit 100,000 subscribers. So congratulations on that. That's a huge accomplishment. So how have your videos like transitioned from the beginning to now? I know you guys do a lot of like Adventurers League builds and stuff now. Even though the core of your content has remained around Dungeons and Dragons, do you find yourself making different videos or moving to different tastes since the beginning of your channel?
Yes, because when we first started, we didn't actually know what we were going to talk about.
Okay.
Really the channel was very generic. The audience actually kind of guided us to what the channel was going to ultimately be about. Not to mention that when we first started, we had an external microphone and an iPhone, or external microphone for an iPhone. And that is what we use to record our videos, compared to today where we're using, separate audio, separate video, 3 different camera angles.
It looks so good, by the way. Like every time I watch one of the videos, I'm like, God, I'm in for a treat. And always like the skits in the beginning, they get me every time.
That's another thing, we decided, it was something we had wanted to do early on, was like the skits and have more fun with it. Mm-hmm. But I don't think we had the confidence early on to do it. And as as we were able to start outsourcing some of our technical things, it kind of let us focus more on some of the creative. So that's another thing. In the beginning, there were no thumbnails. Then we were doing our own thumbnails, and now we outsource them to someone that does a way better job than we do. Alex Gillette from Critical Hit Publishing does an amazing job with those. We started outsourcing our post-production on the videos, which also made it a lot easier too, because it was like, oh, we can just ask for an effect or ask for a thing, and someone just like makes it appear like magic.
Yeah, that's what it is, honestly, magic. I mean, I do the editing for this, and it's like, I know there's many people out there who would do a way better job.
So then from the other standpoint, when we first started, it was okay, you know, as Dave says, you know, we got an iPhone and a mic. We'd be like, hey, what do we want to talk about? So we'd be sitting there ready to record without having any, you know, pre-work done on topic or flow of the video. And we would just talk until we felt we were done. And then somebody would kind of lead us into, you know, our outro, and then we'd be done. We'd hit stop, you know, okay, you know, write the topic down, move on to the next one. And then we eventually moved into, let's create a list of what we're going to talk about. You know, now we wind up, you know, having, you know, one meeting to decide what are we actually going to talk about. We have a second meeting where we actually do a video flow sheet for how the video is going to work. You know, we don't have it scripted. It's not something that we know, oh, word for word, this is what's going to be said. But if we have bullet points or, you know, things that we want to be able to talk about, then we've got an idea of, hey, this is what we're actually going to say. This is the message we're trying to deliver, whether it be tips or character build, flow, what have you. You know, having that information done in advance, you know, it's going to come across so much better, and it's going to be cleaned up so much more than those earlier videos we were doing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a common trend that I've noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, of things on your channel, I've seen a lot of like tips and tricks. So, you know, like top wizard spells or, you know, best cantrips and videos like this. Talking about I mentioned it in that little intro that I made, is you guys are on Kickstarter now. And on Kickstarter, you are making a book called Out of the Box Encounters. Encounter building is some see it as sort of a difficult thing within Dungeons and Dragons. What inspired you to make a Kickstarter or create content based around encounter building?
Well, we felt like it was a super useful piece of information or product that dungeon masters could just go to in a pinch. And like you said, sometimes people find it a difficult thing to create. So our lead designer, our writer, has 30 years of experience. He's been dealing with this kind of stuff for a long time. He's used to dealing with the oddities and weird stuff that players come up with, and decided to do a series on our website, Out of the Box Encounters, where he addresses that kind of stuff. He builds the encounter and then thinks about, well, what is it the players are probably going to do? And then what are the things the DM can do to make this more complicated or less complicated? And most of those encounters aren't actually like, oh, this is going to be a fight. Could it be? Sure. But they're not approached from that angle. They're approached from, you know, the personalities and what the monsters actually want, you know, their goals and objectives. Right. So, yeah, so a lot of our encounters are kind of variable as far as what level they're designed for, but just because, you know, we wanted to take into account all three pillars of the game. You've got social, you've got exploration, and you've got combat. Mm-hmm. So these actually focus much heavier on exploration and social than they do combat. Granted, anything can turn into combat. That's easy enough. You have the monsters there. But I think we feel like that's like easy for a DM to do. So we incorporate these other elements and these other pillars that, you know, the DM can drop right into their game.
And another thing to look at is, you know, regardless of how much a DM, you know, plans and preps for a session, there's no way to ultimately know exactly what the players are going to do. I mean, I've even, you know, ended one session with my players saying, hey, you know, where are you guys planning to go? And they're like, oh, we're going to go in this direction. I planned for that. We showed up at the next session. We did the, you know, the recap of what wound up happening. And they decided, you know what, even though I said we're going this way, we're going that way instead. And it's like, are you kidding me? Okay, let's go. So since you can't as a GM always know which way your players are going to go, it's great to have a resource that you can be able to pull out, to be able to say, all right, well, let me at least throw an encounter at you. And out of the box encounters is a perfect example of, okay, oh, you're going through the grasslands. All right, well, let me pull this out, go through the appendix. All right, there's 17 that are, that could be used in grasslands or plains. Great. Now I've got that, ready to go. Let's grab one that's closest to the level of my party, and voila, I don't have to prep anything. It's all right there.
Yeah. And I think the important similarity between both of your points right now is the convenience of the book. Really, when you boil everything down and you throw in business analytics and business ideas and business conversation, is you would like to sell convenience. How is this going to make the life of the consumers easier? And I love these kind of products because this is, sort of suited for a dungeon master. Players can pick it up as well and start, plotting encounters for their own campaign they would like to run one day. But dungeon masters are sort of the target here, it seems like. And anything that makes the life of the dungeon master easier is excellent. Because we all know being a dungeon master can take up a lot of time. Between planning your campaign, taking into your players' considerations, like what are the characters' goals, all 5 or 6 of them, and how do I intertwine all these into the campaign so no one feels left out or no one feels like this is someone's own show and their character doesn't mean anything. So I think having convenient encounters that you can just throw in, like Ted said, when characters or players do something completely unexpected is extremely convenient for the dungeon master. And the thing I'd like to point out here is that these aren't just combat encounters. Specifically in the description, it says they can be traps, puzzles, anything like that. So, defining encounter isn't just combat. It's something, like you said, environmental that they could encounter or anything like that. So, how long did it take you to put all these together? Because there's a lot of encounters in this book, and I think you guys just hit some stretch goals that up the number of encounters.
That question is actually very easy. It took us approximately 1 year. So
I'm just lofting them up for you.
yeah. So initially, what it was a series on our website that Mike Gould had written, and we took the first year and we decided to bundle that into a book. So that gave us 50 encounters to work with. Now, we wanted to release all 50 at once, but logistically, running a Kickstarter, funding goals, we did not think we would be able to, fund that full book. So we said, well, what can we do? Well, we can fund most of it, and we can pack the rest of it in the stretch goals, and then we can ask some of our friends in the industry to give us a hand and add some interesting things to it, which, we've been blown away. I mean, we're over 70,000 of the 20,000 we asked for. And we're so super happy and excited because we can make the book we really, truly wanted to make. No matter what, we wanted to make something we could be proud of and we're going to be super happy about. But, you still have to deal with the logistics. You have to be able to afford all the art and the maps and have everything to put in the book and make sure everyone gets paid.
Printing and shipping and, all of the logistics that a lot of people really, don't encounter or deal with on a regular basis. And it's like, all right, all of that stuff is, going to have a cost, and we gotta, D&D, sometimes is about math, and we got to do the math and figure it all out. So.
Yeah, that's very true. And like you said, you're over 70,000. A backer count on that is as time of recording, this is sure it's going to be much higher by the time this video goes out. It's 1,104 backers. That's an enormous number for Kickstarter and Dungeons and Dragons. Like, that is absolute. Like, there's a scale, and it's like you successful funded, you killed it, you did well, awesome job. Holy shit. And you guys are just right about at the holy shit area.
I know, and we still have 23 days to go as of the recording, and we are blown away that over 1,000 people said yes to this product. And
yeah,
I mean, we did everything we could to make sure when we presented it, we made it look as cool as we possibly could. We laid out quite a bit of money just to get that page up on Kickstarter and make it look the way it looks.
Yeah, it looks amazing.
finding amazing artists and writers to punch everything up. And then, so now the pressure is to deliver this amazing book because, it absolutely has to be amazing because the backers deserve that.
No, I'm sure it will. I mean, you like we talked about, you have a massive reach as creators and influencers that, there's tons of people that you can lean on if you need help or anything like that. So that you should not worry about as much. Plus, you guys have been in the industry for forever. You've seen what works and what doesn't work. So I have very much faith in you guys on that one. So I'm going to give a little bit of my insight before I ask this question. So I think the reason for personally why like I choose Kickstarter or why other companies choose Kickstarter is because the book can evolve throughout the creation process. If you just create a book and then release it, maybe just as like a pre-order system or just straight to your website, what you buy originally is what you're going to get. Whereas Kickstarter, say you pledge, $40 for a book, and then 30 days later, that book can look completely different or upgraded, if you will, from the original pledge. So is that sort of like a similar reason why you guys chose Kickstarter to put out this book? Is that the book can literally evolve down the however many days you picked to create it?
Well, I mean, let me jump in here. Number one, I think that there's something to say about that, but I think for us, I think it has more to do with the actual crowdfunding. We brought up that it takes a lot of money, to pay the artist, to pay a printer, to pay a shipper, to go through all of that. And, we don't have the funds to say, let's put this out there as a gamble and say, let's go and do it. Like there are plenty of publishing companies out there that are, grounded, and they know that, they can go ahead and make a book happen and it's going to meet sales, and, be profitable to some degree. We're not there. As Dave said, a while ago, like we started this, basically recording out of my basement, and that's where I still am. This is, this is the corner here in my basement, as we talk about in, many of our videos. We don't have the funds to really push forward. So crowdfunding is really the best way to go. And while, yes, we had to shell out some money first to get, artists on staff and people to get going, so if we push it out there and it doesn't kick, well, all right, we're out money, but, we've at least started the process. Maybe we'll try again. Well, thankfully, the awesome supporters out there, the awesome community, that exists in D&D, they believe in us and they believe in the project. So we were able to, really blow away, that original goal. And that allows us to say, well, we're not going to just sit back and say, well, you know what, we promised you 30 encounters, we're going to deliver 30 encounters and call it done. Let's put more money into the project, make it awesome, make it bigger, make it better. And that's what the Kickstarter community really enjoys. I know that there are some Kickstarter backers, and I'm very much about Kickstarter. I've backed quite a large number of projects, and I've seen stuff that it's like, look, it's a one and done. It's either going to fund or it's not, and you're going to get it or you're not, and all the extra profits just go to whatever company's behind it. And if that's what you do, I have no problems with it. It's up to me as to whether I choose to back Kickstarters that are going to do that. But when you see companies that are like, no, we made a big funding here, let's make it bigger, let's make it better. You said that it's going to be completely different, but it's usually not completely different. It's just bigger, it's just better, it's more of whatever it is that you were looking at. So like I factor all of these kinds of things into whether or not I'm planning to back a project. I know there's some people out there who they pour over the backer updates to read every last word and to see what new things that they're going to get, and other people are like, I'll check it out whenever I feel like getting around to it. Like all of these things, it comes down to the end user on Kickstarter, and that's why that was the choice for us.
Yeah, that's 100% commendable. using this, because I mean, Kickstarter is a very, very helpful resource for creators nowadays. It puts some less strain on the creator because they're more confident in their funding, or that you can literally see the number and say, okay, this is where we're at, and it's not theoretical analytics or anything like that. So I would like to ask each of you, without giving away too much information, because I know this is what your entire book is about. Do each of you sort of have, like a master's tip when to building an encounter? Like if you had to boil it down to like maybe one or two tips specifically to keep in mind when you are preparing or planning an encounter, what would it be? We'll start with Dave on this one.
Sure. I think when you plan an encounter, the biggest thing is to come up with a problem that your players need to find the solution for. I'm a big fan and proponent of not creating that solution, letting the players, have at it. And as the dungeon master, whatever they do, I kind of decide as they do it, does this seem like a reasonable solution to the problem at hand? Or, is it something that I would have never thought of? And I feel like by doing that, it really frees up what can potentially happen. Sometimes I've been guilty of this. I know other DMs have as well. Is you lock in a solution to a problem, and none of your players have that solution.
Mm-hmm.
To you, it might seem super obvious, but to them, it's just, they're just not getting it, and that happens all the time. And then, as the DM, you can do one of two things. You can figure out how to facilitate the game, or you can dig in your heels and everything comes to a grinding halt. So, that combined with just trying to know who your players are at the table. Now, obviously, if you're doing a one shot, or this isn't a game at a convention or something, that you're not going to be able to know that. But if you're talking about your home game and people that you play with often, the more you know about the players at the table is super helpful as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good point, because the open-ended nature of Dungeons and Dragons shouldn't be limited to, like you said, to just maybe one answer to every problem. Ted, do you have anything that you always try to keep in mind when creating an encounter?
So sure. So I got two things to consider, and one, I actually didn't learn this concept until after I started playing or started being in Nerdarchy and traveling more and meeting other game designers, other gaming systems, and that sometimes the work doesn't have to be done by you. Player agency is a wonderful opportunity that is very freeing for a DM. So if you're looking for, exactly what is it that your players might want in this situation, you can be like, okay, while you're traveling through the woods and you turn, all right, Ben, what do you see, coming down the road? Or, what do you see as you look out into the trees? And, some players are thrown for a loop when you present them with, okay, you've just given them, agency, you've given them power to describe what's going on. Other players are completely comfortable with doing this. And they're like, oh, well, I'm really in the mood for a fight right now. So it happens to be a big giant worm that's doing this, or, oh, well, I'm really in the mood for a, shopping role-playing scene. So right now, oh, we see a gnome on a horse, riding his wagon, through the trees, and he stops and says, hey, are do you happen to need any blah blah blah? And you can get into a cool role-playing scene right at that moment, and the players are the ones that have the ability to dictate that, if you know them enough that they're going to be comfortable with doing that, and two, that they're not going to do something that's going to break immersion, or like, oh yes, I happen to stumble upon a dragon's treasure hoard undefended. That's when, like, okay, well, fine, it's an illusion, and this is what's really behind it. So if you've got the ability to improv, you can kind of mold and grow with stuff that's there. And then when it comes to dealing with a combat encounter, my favorite thing is doing things in layers. If you've got the ability to have players who are notorious for bad dice rolls, or maybe you as a GM have the you roll way more 20s than you would really want. You want to make sure that the encounter is padded. So if you've got the ability to add more combat later, round 2, round 3, what have you, this allows you to soften the impact on the players and allow you to really present more of a challenge without it resulting in a potential TPK. So that's something that I enjoy doing when possible. But you have to build and mold the terrain and the encounter to allow for something like that. If it's set up as an ambush, well, why is there not the second group already there? So you've got to plan that out, with more nuance than you would with a regular encounter.
Yeah, and I think your points really spoke to sort of like the idea that D&D is a collaborative storytelling experience game, that actually Matt Mercer talks about often, who also did the foreword for your book as well, which is really cool. So do you have any plans for future Kickstarters? I know you guys got a lot going on now, and I know that this one is extremely, successful already, and it's, sometimes you want to focus on what's right in front of you. But could you see yourself doing another book like this maybe in the future?
Absolutely. The biggest thing though for us is to get through this one and over deliver on what we promised.
Yeah.
Before we can even think about doing another book. As first time publishers to a physical product, I feel like that's going to be the most important thing for us to do.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I think sometimes people try to get ahead of themselves.
We always have ideas. I mean, we use Google Docs quite a lot, and there's a lot of started or half finished products that we have worked on over the many years since we started putting products together. And with the idea of, hey, we want to make this one happen, we are not in any way, shape, or form going to launch a second Kickstarter till this one is in our backers' hands. But
Awesome.
with this one being very DM centric, the ideas that we're potentially kicking around, we should do a player centric one for our next one.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds awesome. I think it's important to sort of try to at least try to pander to the widest range of people as possible. And especially switching it up and not letting your insanity get to you by making similar products over and over again. You guys are obviously creative people, so I'm sure whatever you decide to do in the future is going to be just as successful as this one. I think we covered a pretty good amount of content today. So I always this is new for the viewers that have watched these interviews thus far. I've ended it not on a very high or interesting note. However, that changes today. And I would like to exit each one of these interviews or talk show-esque videos with getting the favorite gaming memory from the guests. So we'll kick it off with Ted. What is your favorite gaming memory in your years of gaming?
So this is a very difficult thing to look at. I've been gaming for over 25 years at this point in time, and there's a lot of fantastic things that has happened. Moments of hilarity, moments of oh my god, I can't believe that die roll happened. So like I would think for me the best thing would probably be the actual culmination of my first long campaign. Since we started Nerdarchy, we started campaigns at first level. In our rich gaming past, we rarely, if ever, got to a completed story. We would just game and play till the DM got burned out or bored, or someone's like, hey, I got an idea, let's start a new campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And the DM was like, sure, yep, go ahead, you take the seat. So to actually run a game that lasted over 4 years, we started at level 1. I went from as few as 3 players at a session all the way up to 9 at any given time. Finally, finishing a 20th level game where they went into hell. They slew a demon lord that I had I statted out. The actual mini over here is Mother Mashaf from Reaper. that I had intern Jake paint for me. It was such a culmination of so many years, getting to that point where we finished the game, and players got to go and tell me how their characters retired. It was just so satisfying that I think, to me, while it's not a grand in the spot moment, but all of it together was just so fulfilling for me.
Yeah, it's almost euphoric at the end of such a massive experience that you share with many other people. And that's, I think, the important distinction between Dungeons and Dragons and other games. It's the experience you have with other people is just unrivaled, and it's almost inexplicable to people who don't play the game. So, Dave, do you have a favorite memory of any gaming experiences?
Oh yeah, hands down, this is easy.
He's like, no.
You already mentioned, we did run a mini campaign in a castle. It was the Nerdarchy castle, where myself, Ted, and Nerdator Doug each ran a 6-session arc for strangers, people we've mostly never met before. Some of them Nerdarchy fans, some of them not. But I want to say like a third of them were Nerdarchy fans. And we culminated that with an epic. We combined all 3 tables into one encounter, 17 players and 3 dungeon masters. And, the final session was basically the big boss battle that lasted about 2.5 hours. That was amazing. I mean, for one, we were flown to the UK to hang out in a castle and play Dungeons and Dragons. Like, you could have just stopped there, right?
Right.
But then, there was all this other cool stuff that went along with it. And then after the castle, Ted and Doug went back to their Muggle jobs and lives, and I went on to another castle to run one-shots. So, that whole experience, I don't know how I would ever top that as far as Dungeons and Dragons experiences or role-playing game experiences. But actually, it feels like a once-in-a-lifetime thing. But we'll be back next year doing it again. So until that happens, it's a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing.
Up until then, you'll just keep saying it that way, and then once you experience it again, it's going to be the same thing. That's awesome. It's really cool to put yourself literally in the scenario that your characters would be in, right? Being in a castle playing the game. I experienced something similar when I was an intern at Disney for the last year. Is you're literally in this storybook setting, and just the creative. I was going to say juices, but that sounds disgusting. The creative nature of your brain is just working at a different wavelength at that point. Did you guys place the campaign within the castle?
Funny story there. We did, but 48 hours before we arrived, and then the guests would be arriving the next day, Haverwall Castle, it was the only castle with a moat, which was really cool, got seized by the bank. The owner went into bankruptcy, and the promoters, Counter Regency, had to find another castle in 48 hours, and they did. And they moved the whole event, and it was a big thing. But yeah, so that was kind of crazy. So we totally built our adventure around the castle we were going to be in. And so people are like, why is there so many peacocks? What is this weird peacock fetish you guys have? Because the other castle was supposed to have peacocks. We made it this central plot point for the game that we were running. So what are you going to do?
So what I'm hearing right now is that anything can happen when you're preparing a game of Dungeons and Dragons. Anything. Good or bad. Which side point, I know I shouldn't say this because this is extremely rude, but that's probably the lamest someone has lost a castle in the history of losing castles.
Oh no, listen, the Iron Bank was no joke. Game of Thrones.
That's true. That is very true. So if something similar were to happen to anyone on a normal day where your campaign has to be changed at the last minute because of external circumstances, I think one of the best things you can have in your ammunition is out-of-the-box encounters from Nerdarchy on Kickstarter currently. You want to have this book because if for some reason you are playing D&D in a castle and it gets foreclosed on, you want to have encounters in your back pocket that you can whip out and run in any context and created an entire campaign just out of these encounters. And I think you guys would agree.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100% concur. Well, you know what, too, because we aren't the lead designers on this project. I mean, we've definitely changed some things and had to, modify things because when we originally created the product,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't know it was going to be a product, so it wasn't written with SRD in mind.
Sure.
So there was a lot of things that had to be changed and improvised on, and which was great because it gave us opportunities to make new monsters and new magic items and new mechanics, other things that we could add into it. So we were extremely proud of the work that Mike Gould did as the lead designer on this, and literally we were like agonizing when we decided we wanted to do a Kickstarter, what were we going to do a Kickstarter about, and we collectively decided, Mike put so much work into it and did such a great job. We really want to make this a thing, and we want to reward him for all the hard work he put into Nerdarchy. So we wanted to give back, and also we wanted more people to look at this and see this and see the work that he put into it, because he did such an amazing job, and I can't praise him enough.
Yeah, and again, it just sounds like this book is convenient as it can get for a dungeon master. So again.
Let me touch more on that convenience factor.
Yeah.
I don't know, whether, viewers out there have actually gone and looked at the page yet, but to kind of couple the fact with the out of the box encounters, and to, add into the convenience factor, we are actually partnered with Arknight, who make the maps and flat plastic miniatures. So literally, if you get the Arknight pack, you literally have everything you need to run that out of the box. Because if you get that, the maps for those encounters and the flat plastic miniatures for all of those monsters are going to be included. So you literally can take the book and the pack and run it with just a set of dice. So you'll be good to go.
Yeah, you're only selling and selling more, with the amount of convenience that is being acquired throughout this book. Again, that is Out of the Box Encounters on Kickstarter from Nerdarchy. Links will be in the description, obviously. Social medias all of them are at Nerdarchy, correct? We'll also have links down below. I think you guys own the Nerdarchy brand across all social medias, which is awesome.
Yeah, you Google Nerdarchy, will come up.
Yeah,
sure.
Exactly. This is one of those those content creators where it's like, all right, nerd, and then it's already like Nerdarchy of everything. So I think that pretty much wraps it up for today. Thank you guys very much for coming on the show. Congratulations on the successful Kickstarter thus far, and in early congratulations on 100,000 subscribers, because I know it's going to happen soon, which is a huge accomplishment considering, this channel is just about to hit 1,000 pretty soon. So I'm coming for you, Nerdarchy.
Well, it's become the benchmark of the really good channels to pass us. So,
any last notes from you guys? Anything else you'd like to plug or talk about before we sign out here?
No, I mean, we're just extremely lucky and blessed to be a part of this D&D community, and all the support that we've gotten from the fans and from everyone, and Kickstarter, being able to open us up to brand new audiences. As anyone knows that does Kickstarter, which we learned as we started doing it, is most of your pledges actually come from people who have no idea who you are. Yep. And that part is really exciting. It's one thing for the fans to be like, hey, we know these guys, and even some of our friends in the industry are pointing people towards us, and that's a direct referral. But there's so many strangers that have never heard of Nerdarchy coming to the Kickstarter and being like, you know what, this is a product I need in my game. That's awesome.
Totally.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone. That's what I want to leave off with.
Yeah. So I'll add that a thank you to you for having us on here. Despite the fact you're like, oh, I'm such a big fan. We're fans of Frog God, and would more than happy to come on and discuss awesome D&D stuff with you guys.
Sweet, right on. And I said this last time and brought up to the promise. We will have you guys on again, because you guys are awesome, fun to have conversations with. Obviously, do it professionally for good reason. All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for watching. Make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it at any point. Subscribe to the Frog God channel for more content, as well as the Nerdarchy channel. Hopefully, we can help push them over the 100,000 mark. And for today's comment down below an encounter that you often use or your favorite environment, any encounter that you enjoy using within Dungeons and Dragons. All right, that's it from us. Thank you all for watching. Keep those rolls and spirits high, and we'll see you next time.